Hey, everybody. Chris Starczewski, principal at Dudley Middle School here alongside co-host Dean Packard, principal at Charlton Middle School. We are Unlock the Middle, and we are here for what used to be our Principal's Perspective Friday segment. This is episode 1 of Navigating Leadership. Welcome. Dean, it's almost Halloween. We're a little motley crew to kick us off. You're wearing an amazing hat. Looks like the brain is expanding. How are you today?
Hey, Chris. How are you, my friend? I'm doing really well. Principal Perspective taking off in a whole new direction as we are going to start having some great in-depth dialogue with other principals in our area, but also around the country about what their week has been all about. And more importantly, digging into leadership in general. You know, we do have a Halloween weekend. We got our stuff out to our parents. We did some video clips for kids, trying to make it as real as possible, trying to make our jobs feel as though that we are connecting on all cylinders. And that's what we do as principals, Chris. Happy Friday to you, and throwing it back at you.
Well, you know, I spent my day taking care of some business in classrooms and in the office, but we recognized our first students of the month today. And it was kind of interesting to do because we only have half the kids in the building. We also have some full remote learners. So Mr. Tucker and I went out around town and delivered 4 certificates to our remote learners who were recognized as students of the month, connecting with kids, connecting with families. It was awesome. Then we got back here about 2 o'clock. We looked outside and said, a lot of teachers need to get out of here and start their weekend. Let's go grab some brooms and clean some cars off because it's snowing here. And we got them all set and ready to go. So teachers saved about 4 or 5 minutes apiece to start their weekends. For me, that is one way to start the weekend and give a little bit back to each person and make sure that they know they're special in our eyes.
Well, I'll tell you what, as Friday approaches every week, it's great. The teachers understand it's time to start unpacking and unwinding and trying to recharge and get ready for the following week ahead. Listen, we're all in this together as principals. It's uncharted territory. We're learning on the fly. We're getting better every day at what we do, and we're really building that bond between communities and staffs and really doing what's best for kids. And that's all you can ask from a leadership standpoint. And today we're going to get into some real good discussion about what leadership looks like in other buildings besides ours, Chris.
Hey, if you're out there and Unlock the Middle Land and you're tuning in, make sure that if you have opinions or comments, you chime into our live broadcast. And if you're catching us on a replay, toss your thoughts and ideas out there on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on YouTube, but tag every comment with hashtag NAV Leadership, NAV Leadership. We're navigating leadership every Friday afternoon. What do you say we get our first guests in here, Dean?
Let's bring them both in, Chris, and I'll tell you what, I'll bring them in. You start giving a little intro to both of them.
All right. Mr. Gregg Desto is formerly the principal here at Dudley Middle School, moved on to superintendent in Dudley Charlton, and went back to the roots, being a middle school principal where he's currently in Auburn, Massachusetts at Auburn Middle. Gregg is married to another educator who's also a principal at the pre-K, K-1 level, and he's got a couple of boys who are his pride and joy. How are you today, Gregg?
Good, guys. How you doing?
Oh, we're fantastic.
Great to see you, my friend. And I'll tell you what, the roots are very deeply set here in Dudley Charlton, which makes the conversation with you a little more special than anything else. So great to have you with us, Gregg. We're going to bring in Chappie as well right now, Chris. Give him his just due.
I don't know if I can give Chappie his just due. He's like the artist formerly known as Prince. His name is Bill Chaplin, everybody. He's the principal at Shepherd Hill Regional High School here in the Dudley Charlton Regional School District. He's got a counseling background, social work background. He's an amazing leader, and he is not afraid to put his opinion out there and drive an agenda. He is about moving forward every day, every step. And he is a great colleague and friend to have. How are you, Bill Chaplin?
I love being here because, you know, when I was here before, we had a great topic. And this crew right here, the 4 of us, man, this could be an ongoing sports center segment type thing where we just kind of go back and forth and back and forth. So I'm glad to be here for the first one.
Well, Chris, I'm going to tell you something about the leadership. When we look at the word leadership, It's about empowering and inspiring others around us. Every one of us in this little category right here has a uniqueness about what we do each and every day. And again, the common denominator is what's best for kids. And as we look at it through that lens, leadership takes on so many different viewpoints. Yeah, Mr. Desto, the Motley Crue shirt, the lead-in song. You're absolutely right, Mr. Olson. Thanks for doing that and checking that out. So, hey, let's start off very quickly here. We're going to throw this over to Mr. Desto, principal of Auburn Middle School. Let's just talk a little bit about leadership from your standpoint, Gregg, in regards to your journey and what you think about it from yourself as well as your school.
What jumps out at me is how much it's changed for me over the years. When I first started out, I was more apt to, I had been building up all these thoughts and ideas and opinions over the years, and I wanted to use them. And so I was more apt to lead from the top down. Not that I didn't seek the input of the staff, but I was much more apt to just kind of say, I think this is a good idea. Let's just do it. I've evolved, and I also have an extremely talented and veteran staff at Auburn Middle School. So I think I'd be crazy not to collaborate with them a lot more than I would have when I was 30 years old. It's a lot right now about, well, certainly in this year's environment, it's a lot about collaborating with the staff about what they think is going to work, because they're the ones living it. And it's a lot about making sure that they're okay emotionally and physically, and that they have what they need to get the job done, because what they're doing is unbelievably hard right now. So I think I'm much more of a player's coach is what they say in sports. Like you lead by empowering those within much more than I am top down now. And I think that's the way it's evolved for me.
Chappie, kick it over to high school, because, you got three middle school principals here, and you got somebody who's sitting at the top of the pyramid here. And, it doesn't change when it comes to empowerment or creating voice. So what does it look like from the lens from the high school level?
Yeah, I think, Gregg hit a lot of great points in terms of, what leadership is. And I've always found this is my second career. Chris said my first career was in mental health. I ran outpatient clinics. I had a private practice and whatnot. And the nucleus of all of this, and especially at the high school or the middle school level, is about relationships. And I've always found that great leaders surround themselves with other great leaders and people that all have this like internal compass, okay, to be absolutely relentless in their pursuit of whatever that is. So for us, we know it's education and taking care of students and families and communities and our staff. So that compass is important, I think, because, listen, I'm going to tell a really quick story. Great leaders also seek out other leaders, and Twitter has been wonderful in helping this, and professional learning networks and so forth. So this is my fifth year at Shepherd Hill, fifth year in the Dudley Charlton district. We're working with all three of you guys. And I've told this story over and over again, that there's really one reason why that year I finished up working with students who I had in my classroom in the 7th grade, and then followed all the way through the 12th grade. And at that point, I was their assistant principal. And there was no way in the world I was leaving those kids to get a principal job anywhere until they graduated. So just so happened they were graduating, and that year I applied for one job and one job only, principal job, and that was at Shepherd Hill. It was open. I said, I have to go work there for simply one reason: the guy next to me over here, Gregg Desto, because he has such a great reputation about leading from his heart, leading from modeling wonderful relationships. And when we were here together many years, 2-3 years, and he was such a great leader. So leaders have that compass, and it's always pointed north towards taking care of others, but we also seek out other people that have that same compass. And the three of us and Desto, great company.
The more I think about what I'm hearing in terms of leadership, it's much less about taking that theoretical leadership definition that we all had at some point during undergrad. I was a business major, management information systems, and you look at that management book and you hear leadership, and you look at this theory and the spin, and that's all great, and that creates a good foundation of understanding. But if you don't have an understanding of how to navigate relationships and understand strengths and areas for improvement, or areas of inability in some cases, and acknowledge that that is going to be a challenge, it's going to be an impossible role to fill as a school leader, as a leader in any organization, really, because this is not about a bullwhip in a chair any longer. This is about teasing out a great and effective, and Gregg mentioned it earlier, a team environment. And that players coach mentality is something that I think, this screen really has a great understanding of. And there's a lot of complementary relationship amongst us that really helped us form a pretty tight team. And that is trickling down. And by down, I don't mean we're at the top of that pyramid, but it's trickling down in our organization to all areas. And that's important for me.
When you look to empower students and empower teachers and create teacher voice, it looks different in every building, but the concept of it remains the same. If we're going to put the oars together in the water and rowing in the same direction, we've got to create buy-in. So what does that look like in each of your buildings? How do you do that? What is the trick to that? Because that's what makes schools really fly. Gregg, why don't you start off?
I'll start off with something that Bill mentioned, which is relationships. And so if you don't have like a reasonably trusting relationship with the people that are on your staff, then there's going to come a time when you're going to get stopped in your tracks. So when we need to, let's say, for example, and we've had to do it 3 or 4 times this year alone, we need to implement a change that is going to impact people. Right? It's going to impact students, going to impact staff. I'm not just going to throw that out there and say, this is what we're going to do starting Monday. First, I'm going to go and meet with the teams. And I'm going to say, this is what I think we need to accomplish. I don't think we're going to be able to do it in the model we're in now. Let's talk about, all right, so I might put it to them like, this is happening. Let's talk about how to make it happen well and in a manner that works well for you, and get people's input. And I let everybody have their opportunity to share their thoughts on it. But at the end of the day, sometimes you get 50 different directions on those opinions, and you have to make the decision, which we do at the end of the day. But we have definitely given people their input. And even if you do that, it works best if you've established that you're a person who can be trusted and that you're somebody who's looking out for the best interest of the students and the staff. So it really starts with relationships before you can effectively have those conversations about teacher input.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without a doubt. Chappie, expand?
Yeah, I keep thinking, like, I've been here for 5 years, in education for probably 15 years. And I'm always learning, I'll tell you, I learn best when I step in it. Okay. I'm always learning something every day. And I've stepped in it a bunch of times here at Shepherd Hill in the beginning, and I had to learn and adjust. And there's a level of like vulnerability that as the great leaders know they're not perfect. The great leaders know that they don't have every answer, but somehow they can facilitate a process of a group of people to come up with those answers or come up with those to overcome those challenges. And I think that's what Gregg is talking about in terms of buy-in and so forth. And listen, I've had some crappy leaders as models as well over both my careers. And they were always the one that would be, no, this is the way we're doing it. And not really open to give people second chances or give people, those things. There's no one that's perfect. We kid around all the time what we're going through right now. We're always saying, "Oh, this is our first pandemic," because it's everybody's first pandemic. And the reality is, this year in the last 8 months, man, I thought I could be able to pivot and adjust and kind of go with anything. And there've been years here when Gregg was here, there were years when there were major things that we had to kind of deal with. But I think every person that is in my PLN has been at the edge, and again, the great leaders recognize that they're at the edge and they don't have the answer. So it's about that facilitating, whoever it is, group of students, group of teachers, group of community members. It's about facilitating, hearing their voice, and then facilitating that process.
To say it like a negative way to say it, Bill, in my experience, people who are all about their own ego, or people who who refuse to look in the mirror and reflect on what they do, they don't usually last that long.
Mhm.
Yeah. Being able to model and take the risk that you're asking educators to take and kids to take is really important. But, Bill, you kind of nailed it when you said, you learn best by stepping in it. It's great when you go out there and you try to do something and you succeed, but it's also great in that if you fail and you do step in it, because it's all about your reaction and your response that kind of guides the organizational momentum. If we make an error, it's an error. Hey, everybody's going to make the mistake. We're going to own it. We're not going to try and make the mistake again, but I'll be damn sure if I'm going to be constrained and sit in my chair and not take a risk down the road. You got to be willing to put yourself out there. You got to be willing to cross a line every now and then in order to move forward, because that's going to stretch comfort and it's going to stretch capacity. And that's what we really need to have, right now within our organizations, because, we've got a ton of mandates that are being thrown at us left and right. And sometimes, all right, we'll pay attention to those, but here's how we're going to address them in our own way.
So think back if you were a new instructional leader in the vision that you had in your own mind about how you were going to lead coming into a position such as being a principal. I can tell you firsthand that the way that I used to lead when I first started in administration has changed drastically over 18 years. I've become a much better listener. I've become somebody who really can try to understand and place himself in the shoes of others before making a decision. And I think what it's done for me is it's opened my mind to see different perspectives and viewpoints of people within my building. And that is so important when you're looking at empowering and creating overall growth. Gregg, you said it earlier. There are times we have to make decisions, but I think from a teacher's world, they just want to be able to at least have that initial voice in how they feel about something. I think they realize that they're a small portion of the problems that we have every day. And at the end of the day, being part of that rowing in that same direction means that you had a venue or some sort of opportunity to at least articulate your thoughts. Want to jump on that a little bit? Would you agree, disagree?
I agree completely. And I would say one step further, one other reason to do that is that, 99% of the people who work in our buildings have great ideas.
They do.
They're really smart people and they really care about what they're doing. They want to do a great job. In fact, the biggest problem I'm finding this year is people that are so overly stressed because they don't think that they're doing a good job, because they can't put the traditional definition of success into this model. And I have to remind them, as you guys are probably with your staff over and over again, success doesn't look like it did last year.
No, nothing.
But what you're doing is, so anyway, but to the original point, which is that, the best decisions that I've made, the best changes that I've sort of led have had a lot of staff input behind them. My decision at the end, but their ideas were factored into the direction in which we went and the things that had to be done to implement the change.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we might have to sign off on it and take responsibility and be held accountable for it. But the smart leader, and you were certainly one of them, and you continue to be, Gregg, accepts credit on behalf of the group, not on behalf of the signature that's on the approval,
right?
Not on behalf of the people who say great job to you. It's about the team behind me that created this structure. And that is,
Chris, the only thing I've always said, the only thing I can take full responsibility just about for is the people that the decisions I've made to hire the people I've hired.
Yes.
Other than that, it's all a team effort. But I am proud of the people I've hired, and I'll take some credit for that. Other than that, the credit goes to the teams I've worked with.
That's fair. Our goal is always to hire somebody better, smarter, and stronger than us in the field. And you certainly had some wins. Let me tell you, I got a bunch
few losses, a few painful losses, but a lot of wins.
Yeah. Hey, got to take that risk though.
We've all had them.
Chappie, through your lens, can you beat that drum a little bit?
I think everything that everyone's saying is so spot on. It's a bullseye. I this year and last year, I feel like I did a lot more of the worries that Gregg was talking about, that his teachers were saying I'm not being successful. I've done a lot more saying, all right, put that over here. How are you doing? What's going on? Are you doing okay? and checking in with teachers around that. Teachers that want there are some teachers that don't want to do that, but the majority of them do want to say, he is hearing me. One of the things I did, I think I probably learned this from Gregg, is that I started the beginning of the year, every year, I would list out everyone's birthday. Okay. And I would at least, and I'd have the list. I would always go to it every week, say, who's this week? And I would go and I would send them a personal email, do something just to kind of let them know that so many of the minutes that we're in here during the day, we feel like we're ER doctors, triaging after triage after triage. And I'm always telling my two assistant principals, Mr. Resner, Mr. Leach, that you have to laugh every day. And there's moments where you can laugh every single day. And again, the great leaders can recognize that and just kind of pause, breathe, and have a chuckle about something. And I think that does it goes a long way when you have balance like that. And I mean, there are days that it's hard. And there are days where, I'm like, man, what did I get myself into? But I have to remember the people around me, the good people around me. If I can go have a laugh or just kind of, appreciate the stuff that we have going on here. That's the stuff I have to kind of point out again to people.
Let me shoot this out. We all know that we deal with our staffs in probably similar ways, but also in some different ways. Our staffs are carrying a lot of stress at this point in time. The stress of planning multiple levels of learning for their kids, the stress of not knowing what lies around the corner, the stress of scheduling changes. They're hearing the word pivot all the time and things of that nature. How do you help your staff to deal with this? And we all take the stance of saying it's okay. You know what I mean? Take that day. Where's your breaking point? How can we help you? But what does it look like from all of your viewpoints? Chris, you want to start off? We'll work it around.
I want to kick it to Chappie and let him start this off because we've been going in kind of a roundabout around the screen. What say you, Bill?
I think everyone. I said this 2 weeks ago at my staff meeting. Everyone is really crispy right now. Everybody and everyone in my faculty meeting. And I think just recognizing that and facilitating some type of process around, we are all going through this together. We're all going through the same things. Do I wear a mask? When do I do a break? What am I going to do? What about the kid that's not logging on today or hasn't logged on for the past week? We can easily forget that there are many teachers and the four of us and other educated leaders out there that are losing sleep every night because they're worried about that one kid or that one family or one student. And I think just recognizing that and just saying it out loud and providing some kind of, because sometimes teachers are working in silos and they're not feeling, but everybody is going through this. Any great educator leader is going through this right now. Right. I talk to 15 Midwalk principals almost every week, and it's almost identical what we're going through.
Yeah, and being reliant on the fact that others are in the same boat, and that we can break down those walls and we can knock down those doors that are separating us physically, to be able to have some type of forum to talk things through is absolutely essential. I happen to have Dean, middle school principal in the same district, which is a godsend on some days. And the two of us will just call one another, and we've got our own mini support network. And, we've got, Chappie at the Hill, we've got Gregg a couple towns over, and we have others in our local region to rely on. But I really liked what you said about everybody is crispy. Everybody is, because let's face it, teachers, while they may not be considered perfectionists in the vein that they get everything right all the time, they want to make sure that they do everything that is right for kids. And what was right for kids pre-March 13 is very difficult to realize now. And I keep thumping the drum of, listen, 100% used to be 100%. Now 80% is 100%. We've got to be satisfied with the level of expectation that we can meet, not that we want to meet, and without taking a personal toll on each and every single one of us. And that family stress and Oli's comment right there was really important to share, because if we don't acknowledge those stressors, and if we don't continue to be a shoulder to cry on and a hug to give, it's just going to continue to dismantle. And that's going to be a scary place if it does get there.
You know, one of the things that I think about a lot from my own perspective in the years I've been in leadership is that I really try to stay calm now. There's nothing that gets me too fired up. You know, if a mistake is made, if something happens where I have to speak to with a teacher or a student, I take it down to a foundational level. Yep. And, you know, if we as leaders stay calm with our delivery and our body language and our affect overall to the situations we're dealing with, it generally brings situations down to a workable platform. And it's something that takes time in leadership to acquire. You don't get that coming out of the chute. And I've had some very difficult conversations recently with people that we've been able to come to common ground right away because of the delivery that I chose. I listened. I wanted to hear. And Peter's point was very important right here. Staff has to feel like they can vent to you without it being personal, because that's the only way that they can let go of some of the things that they're feeling today. Gregg?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and one more thing is, I had actually a long conversation with two of my teachers. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And I just kind of like said, these are just two people that are outstanding, and I trust them. And I just kind of said, what can I do for people here more than what I'm doing? And they said, it was very interesting. They said, look, you know, I agree with Bill. We definitely need to make sure that they know that we're aware of how miserably difficult this is for them. Okay. We need to make sure that we say that we are all, we've all got our educational cross to bear in this crazy new model that we're in. But they also said something so simple. They said, just let us know that you appreciate what we're doing. And we're the kind of people who do that all the time. And sometimes if you do it too much, they think, oh, he's just saying that because he's the boss and he wants to get, you know, good production out of us. But somehow I'm letting them know that sincerely from the bottom of my heart, I realize how hard this is for you. And I really appreciate all you're doing for your students. And, you know, I actually, you know how I used to write those messages every Monday morning, and I still on occasion do, but I've this year, I've deferred to more of just saying less and more being there for them, and just kind of saying, hey, whatever I can do, I'm here to do. Now, we have a hard job in this model too, but a big part of that is that we've got to take care of these students, and we got to take care of our people on our staff. We got to get through this together.
Yeah, you know,
got to be together on the other side.
I think about what you're saying, and one of the greatest tools we can do is greet people at the door with a good morning. How are you? Is there anything I can do for you today? You know, you're right. In all of our writings, our weekly writings that we send out, we do a lot of thanking teachers and people for what they do. And overkill of that isn't good. And I agree with you 100%. So what do? You be humanistic about who you are. You make yourself available. You be that good listener. You be that person to be there to help problem solve. And I think doing those type of things kind of builds your credibility within the people that you work with over time. So I totally agree. I mean,
if we handle this right, because this is as big an adversity as we've had in our careers.
Yeah.
You know, it's tremendous. If we handle this right, and there's no definition of right, we come out of this and say we're in a regular model next year, the relationships we have with the people in our building should be better than they've ever been and stronger than they've ever been.
Agreed.
You know, it's hopefully that's kind of the hope.
Yeah, and you know, the reality, I'll just jump in there. The reality is, Gregg mentioned that we all have to kind of take care of one another, and we got a heavy lift as well. But for us, we have to be able to reach out to one another too. I'll tell you, one of the things that Dean and Chris and I have recently started to do is we have breakfast once a week. You know, we call it the Amigos Breakfast. And it's so important that I look forward to that now in terms of this is our compass that we do, but I look forward to that every week now because I know I'm going to be able to sit with those. And you know what, Gregg, you can come down. We're at, I'll put a plug out, shameless plug out. We're at Carl's Diner.
Okay.
6:15 in the morning, either on a Friday or a Wednesday.
That's kind of on my way to work.
There you go. So, but that's important too to remember because leaders know how to, the good leaders know how to reach out when they need it to the people that they need something from. And we don't get into big deep talks during the breakfast. But if we listen to one another, hey, how is it going? That buys us another 3, 4, 5 days until we do it again. It's so important.
Yep, you're right. We've got to be aware of taking care of ourselves too.
Yeah, that's the other point. Hey, let's wrap it up with this one final thought about leadership from your perspective. Something we haven't talked about. Go around the table once, and I'll start it off since I brought it up. And the older I get and the wiser I think that I become, like I said, a good listener. When situations become hot, I become cold. I become that person that's just opposite. And I hope that I can plant some seeds on listening and working through some of the turmoil and getting through this pandemic. And my advice to any instructional leader, whatever level you're at, be that person that can just process and not react quickly.
In terms of, the nugget to share, at that point, I was thinking before you started talking, Dean, about, that cool, calm, and collected, the level-headed piece. Anytime that there's a crisis, it could be a physical crisis where there's a medical emergency. The staff are going to be looking to the figurehead who's taking charge and react how they're responding. In this time, within COVID, we're hearing a lot about, the negatives of the positivity. Which is so complex to comprehend. There was an article out a couple of weeks ago about toxic positivity and how can you possibly be too positive? And the reality is that you're ignoring, when you are too positive, the negative emotions and the negative feelings that folks are having. And I understand the psychology behind it, but the reality is you've got to find balance between pushing a door open and just remaining it open a crack. And that's really what I'm talking about when I talk about that crisis management, that cool, calm, and collected approach. You've got to know when to bust in. You've got to know when just to keep the door open and talk through the crack, because that person, that educator, that student, that parent, that other administrator might not be ready to go to the level that you are ready to go to. And it's important for you to acknowledge and have empathy in that situation. Not to ignore the point, though. Always be hard on the issue, but be soft on the people. And that's one of my leadership lessons from Dr. Tony Bent when I took my job in Shrewsbury. Hard on the issues, soft on the people. It's never about the person. It's always about the issue that they're handling, whether it's handled correctly or incorrectly. But never be hard on the person if you're not first hard on the issue.
Toss that over to Chappie. We'll finish off.
My final thoughts are leadership has nothing to do with titles. I've had student leaders over the years that could run any building I've been in. So it's really about where I started with, have that relentless kind of compass inside of you that wants to do better, wants to learn more, wants to develop more. It's never ending. You're never done developing. And that's teachers, students, leaders, principals, assistant principals, teachers, whatever.
Yeah, Bill, I mean, I almost wanted to say the exact same thing, but a slightly different way. And I got asked one time to speak to a group of aspiring principals, and somebody said, what's the number one thing? And, we all know you can't pick one thing. It's such a multifaceted job. But if I had to pick one thing, I would say, if you're going into the business because of yourself and ego and wanting to be the boss, don't go into it, because this has got nothing to do with you. It's being a great leader, in my opinion, is not about any of us. It's about the people we serve, and especially the students who come first in every which way. And when you start to look at it through the lens of what's in the best interest of the students, and how do we do that in such a way that the teachers can feel fired up every day, and like they're having passionate about their career, and like they've got somebody there supporting them. That's really it. I mean, it's about other people. It's not about us. And, there's a guy right up the street from you, Chris, every day named John White, the Reverend at the church there. And this is not a religious statement, but John's a terrific guy, terrific leader. And he always uses the expression, lead with radical love. And we have to, that's a little much, but we have to lead with the thought of other people in mind and not the thought of ourselves. And hopefully if everything plays out well, someday we're 80 years old on a beach somewhere, and it has all reflected well on us, but you don't get there by thinking about yourself. That's exactly what you said in a different way, Bill.
Yeah.
after thinking of it, listening to all three of you guys, and there's one element that none of us talked about, which I hope that we can all kind of bring to fruition in our lives, in our job, in our work lives. It's called have fun. Make sure you find some way to have fun within what you're getting paid to do every day, because that is an out as well, and it's an important out. Hey, Chris, take us home, my friend. You're great at this.
All right, Dean, Gregg, Bill. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation because it really brought back some of the core value statements, that have helped shape me as a leader. By no means am I perfect, and by no means do I have the same abilities as each of the three of you on the screen with me. But we all bring our unique strengths and our unique abilities to our job. But the one thing that brings us all together is the focus on others and the focus on team, the focus on moving forward in increments that are manageable and not being satisfied with the status quo. Always hoping that others take risks, always hoping that others move forward. And as we talk about navigating leadership with our Unlock the Middle program, this is an opportunity for us to connect with other principals in the local region, around the nation, in the world, to share stories, to share experiences, to share beliefs about what effective leadership practices are, to help all of us take our collective practice to that next level. And that's what navigating leadership is about. This has been a heck of an episode, number one, Dean. I'm happy that we shifted our focus a little bit from principal's perspective. It allows us to connect with others in a way that is super meaningful. And I'm pretty fired up going into the weekend now. I got some ideas for what I want to do on Monday morning with our staff, and I am enjoying these conversations.
Don't forget about a little plug for Sunday night, what we have. Okay, so it's
Kristen Latimer.
Kristen Latimer, yes. So
we're going to be talking about educator prep programs, where the theory and the rubber needs to hit the road to help our newest educators be more successful in their first years. And some of the ideas that we're going to talk about might be a little bit radical, because it's going to push the envelope on what traditional educator prep programs need to look like in a new age. So stay tuned. Sunday night, 7 p.m. Unlock the Middle. Chris, Dean, Bill, and Gregg.
Sorry, guys.
Happy Friday, guys.
All right. Have a good weekend, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.